Let's all pray in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Students, welcome to SNA School Year 2021 to 2022. I am Teacher Charlene Socotito Condong, 22 years old from Poblacion Danao, Bohol, your English teacher for the school year.
Are you ready to explore the world of oral communication? Before we start our discussion, let us read first our lesson objectives. At the end of the lesson, the students are expected to understand the nature, process, and functions of communication and the concept of communication breakdown, value its functions, achieve communicative competence, and to create a comic strip showing effective communication, and to write an essay of his or her objective after watching the video. This lesson we will talk about the communication. Oral communication is a subject for sets of students which aims to develop the listening and speaking skills and strategies for effective communication in various situations. What do you think when you hear the word communication? Now let us talk the nature and process of communication first. Communication comes in various forms, from the simple nodding of your head, stretching of hands, raising your eyebrows, up to your daily conversations and with your friends over the phone, constant exchange of text messages, and regular browsing in social networking sites such as the Facebook, Messenger, Instagram. These are but some examples of how humans communicate their thoughts, feelings, ideas, and insight. This only signify that humans really engage in communication. And also, communication is a two-way process of connecting to both living and non-living things. It is sharing and exchanging message, information, ideas, and feelings for mutual understanding. When you exchange ideas with someone or you send information to others, you do it in two ways. You either use words to say what you want to say, or you express yourself through gestures, facial expressions. Since then, people have the need to communicate. Humans are social beings. They live to interact regularly with others. Over the years, communication has progressed tremendously. Language developed side by side with technology. Now, in the 21st century, we realize the power of communication in building relationship and the community at large. Hence, we see importance of communication. Communication connects people and the world they live in. It is through communication that people are able to express their thoughts and ideas or convey information and messages. Let us further define communication using the two key terms, the message and understanding. First, we have communication is a message understood. Unless a message is understood, we cannot say that communication has taken place. Let us send a message to someone and say, where came first? The person who gets this message would wonder what it means, for the arrangement of the words does not make any sense. This message is sent, but the receiver does not understand it. Therefore, for communication to take place, we have to consider two conditions. First, there should be a clear message, and the message must be understood by the receiver for whom it is meant. Second, we have the communication is social interaction through messages. Think of someone telling, "It is very warm today." In this case, we are communicating what we experience. The weather being warm is what we feel or experience physically. In this scenario, we are sharing our feeling or experience with someone else. Thus, we say that communication is a sharing of experience. In our society, we all interact with messages. Without interactions, a society cannot survive. Social interaction is always through messages. We discuss problems and arrive at solutions. We exchange ideas and interact with others. We transact and then we negotiate. In doing all this, we use communication. Imagine a situation where we are not able to speak and interact with others. Or think of a family living in the same house without speaking to each other or relating any form of message to one another. Such a situation can be very lonely and problematic. Without communication, all forms of human relationships will vanish and die. Is it true? Communication is therefore crucial in building and maintaining relationships. So that's why you communicate, loved ones. There are also times when we fail to communicate effectively, which results to misunderstanding or miscommunication. Why do you think this thing happens? What are the ways to avoid them? Let us discuss about the process of communication. We are sometimes misunderstood due to the level of speech we use during communication or conversation, by the volume of our voice or the rate of our speech when we talk with our friends or acquaintances. Sometimes we misunderstood due to the non-verbal actions that we project or incorporate in our speech during face-to-face communication. So, when we send text or chat messages, we are misinterpreted because those messages are often brief and devoid of emotion. In communication, we have 5 basic elements. First, we have the speaker or sender. It is the source of message, information, ideas, or emotions. The speaker chooses his or her purpose, crafts the message accordingly, and decides how to deliver it. This is the first element of the communication process. But in the other forms of communication, the speaker may not be as obvious. When one is talking with his or her mother, both participants alternate a speaker. When just hanging out with one's friends, everyone can become a speaker from time to time. but not at the same time. Second, we have the receiver. It is the recipient of the message or the intended audience of the sender. Or it is the listener. It receives the message. It is said that even if the speaker is great and the message is beautiful, if there is no listener or the listener is not paying attention, then communication fails. It is the listeners who make sense of what is said and reacts to it. By clapping, nodding the head, replying, asking a return question, following the speaker, falling asleep, or walking out. Communication is an interactive process, and if the speaker is one half of the communication, then the listener is the other half. The third one is the message. It contains information, ideas, opinions, thoughts, or emotions. The message is what needs to be delivered or imparted to somebody else. This is the central to the process because the point of communicating is to say something. The message to be sent is based on why the speaker wants to say it, what the speaker wants to say, and how the speaker wants to say it. There is always a message in communication, even in informal or formal communication. Next is channel. It is the medium or the means of communication that is used to deliver the message. Channels are the means by which the message is sent. There are only 5 channels: ears, eyes, skin, mouth, and nose. In other words, a message is sent and received via the senses. Of course, messages are first received through the ears by hearing, while gestures and facial expressions are received by the eyes through seeing. The skin, mouth, and nose are not the main pathways for sending a message, but they are still crucial in the imparting and receiving of messages. The last basic element is the feedback. It refers to the reactions, responses, or information provided by the receiver. It is the result of monitoring by the speaker of the listener's response. The listener may respond to the message positively or negatively. The speaker needs to watch out for this response to know if the message was effectively imparted or not. Making sure of what the feedback is will help the speaker in continuing with the next message. Our everyday transactions with people follow the communication process. As seen in the illustration, communication begins when the speaker or source of communication responds to stimulus and decides to encode or transmit it in the form of message or a code through a particular channel or means of communication. The receiver decodes or interprets the message sent and responds accordingly based on his interpretation of the message. This response comes in the form of feedback, sent to the original source of communication or the sender. As the communication transaction continues, the sender and receiver may exchange roles until understanding is achieved. Barriers to communication sometimes block the transmission of the message, thereby creating misunderstanding. Through this process, we are able to understand that communication is systematic, and the advent of technology, the exchange of information and messages in society has advanced and has been a subject of many studies. Now you understand how communication process. Let us go to the functions of communication. Why do we communicate? Since communication is certain to our lives, it comes naturally and unknowingly. Communication serves many purposes. The following are some of the many reasons why we communicate. First, we communicate because we have to inform, to inspire, to counsel, to sell, to clarify, to question, to express, to promote, to buy, to understand, to confirm, to advise, to teach, to learn, to persuade, to reveal, to accept, to affirm, to clarify, to motivate, to criticize, to deny, to counsel, and many others. Here are some of the purpose of communication. We realize that communication serves many purposes, whether we are at home, in school, at work, or at play. We engage in communication. The best way to understand communication is to see it graphically. Many authors and researchers have come with their own models, based on what they want to emphasize as being an important component of communication. We have 4 models of communication. First, we have Aristotle's model of communication. It is the first and earliest model, 5 BC. Aristotle was the teacher of rhetoric and even put up an academy to produce good speakers. We have this. Although Aristotle focused on the speaker and the message, the most important part in his model is the setting, where the listener is situated. It is the setting that dictates the message. The 3 settings in Aristotle's time were legal, deliberative, and ceremonial. The legal setting meant the courts, where ordinary people defended themselves, or there were no lawyers then. The deliberative setting meant that political assemblies, the highest of which was the Roman Senate. The ceremonial setting meant that celebrations held when they won a war, when they lost a leader or had a new one, and when they welcomed a visiting leader from another kingdom or country. Such occasions called for speeches of welcome, poems of tribute or of eulogies, and poems of lament. The second model is Shannon Weaver's model of communication, which gave us the concept of noise. This is often called the telephone model because it is based on the experience of having the message interfered with by noise from the telephone switchboard back in the 1940s. In this model, Shannon and Weaver assert that the message sent by the source or speaker is not necessarily the message received by the destination or the listener. This is due to the intervention of noise or anything that hampers the communication. Even today, with our advanced cell phone technology, there are still barriers to clear transmission and reception of calls, dropped calls, calls that echo or faint signals, all interfere with communication of the message. The third model is Scrum model of communication. We Wilbur Scrum is the father of mass communication. He came up with 5 models, but the Scrum model we are concerned with is the concept that explains why communication breakdown occurs. Scrum asserts that communication can take place if and only if there is an overlap between the field of experience of the speaker and the field of experience of the listener. What do you think is the field of experience? It is everything that makes a person unique. Everything he or she has ever learned, watched, seen, heard, read, and studied. In other words, it is everything a person has ever experienced or not experienced, done or not done. In fact, this is practically everything that has happened in his or her life. It is this field of experience that is used to interpret the message and create a response. It is also this field of experience of the listener that needs to overlap with the speaker's field of experience, which can only happen when the two fields have commonalities. For example, the teacher must deliver his or her lecture in either English or Filipino, because that is the language that students know and use. If the teacher suddenly started using Chinese in the lecture, the students will not understand a single thing. The teacher may perhaps be understood only if he or she was teaching in a Chinese school. The fourth model is that of Eugene White 1960, White's model of communication, who tells us that communication is circular and continuous, without a beginning or an end. This is why he made a cyclical model. Eugene White contributed the concept of feedback to the field of communication. He also points out that although we can assume that communication begins with thinking, next will symbolizing, expressing, transmitting, receiving, decoding, feedback, monitoring. Communication can actually be observed from any point in the circle. That is why it is called cyclical model. Feedback is the perception by the speaker about the response of the listener. This is the Eugene White contributed the concept of feedback to the field of communication. Feedback is the perception by the speaker about the response of the listener. The speaker can only receive feedback if the speaker is monitoring the listener. The speaker will know what the listener's response is only if he or she is paying attention. Communication breakdown may occur when problems in any of the elements involved arise. They become barriers to communication. Communication breakdown results when the intended message of the sender is not understood exactly by the receiver. Barriers to communication are present. Recognizing the barriers or obstacles to effective communication is important in order to avoid communication breakdown. Here are some of the barriers that may cause communication failure. First, we have the physical barriers. It is the natural or environmental condition that act as a barrier in communication in sending the message from sender to receiver. For example, people talking too loud, loud sound from karaoke, noise from a construction site, blaring of jeepney horns. Just like today, many barriers during my recording for our class. These are some examples of physical barriers. The next one is psychological barriers. These are called as mental barriers. This refers to social and personal issues of a speaker towards communicating with others. For example, trauma, shyness, lack of confidence, depression, stage fright. These are some of examples of psychological barriers. The next one is cultural barriers. It pertains to communication problem encountered by people regarding their intrinsic values, beliefs, and traditions in conflict with others. People's culture affect the way they communicate and relate to others. And here are the example of cultural barriers. First is different beliefs. Next is traditions and costumes. Next is manners of dressing. And the last one is speaking. These are the examples of cultural barriers. The next one is linguistic barriers. It pertains conflicts with regard to language and word meanings, because words carry denotative and connotative meanings. They can sometimes cause confusion and misunderstanding. For example, difference in language, accent and dialect, use of jargon and slang, speech defects or language impairment. Those are some of the barriers of communication. Next, we'll go to the communication breakdown. Communication breakdown may at times be inevitable, but as a sensible speaker or sender of the message, we could avoid this. Understanding the concept of communication breakdown and its causes will help us realize that failure in communication may be avoided through certain strategies that we could adopt. Communication breakdown or miscommunication can lead to a cessation of interaction. Miscommunication is brought about by the lack of awareness of the dimensions of communication, especially those influenced by culture and gender. When we say communication breakdown, it can cause issues or problems at home, school, and community. There are so many barriers to communication, like what we discussed earlier. Sometimes some communication barriers are too difficult to solve, and this will lead to slowing the progress and efficiency. Here are the possible strategies to avoid communication breakdown. First, we have clarity of thought before speaking. Arrange your thoughts before verbalizing them. This can help you communicate much more clearly. And it's a better idea to say something like, I've got a few ideas here. Let me go through them one at a time. We can treat each one on its own merit. Next, we must learn to listen. As simple as it sounds, you'll be surprised how many people out there don't know how to listen well. Just like now, please listen in our discussion so that you can answer our activities. Okay? Not understanding those who you are trying to communicate with will lead to a conversation fraught with misunderstandings. Don't be afraid to ask them to repeat or explain further in polite manner once you don't understand the point. Okay, again, just like today or this week in our class discussion, if you have any questions, just message me in my contact number or in Messenger. Okay, let's proceed to the next way. Take care of your body language and tone. Keep your emotions in check. Try to maintain eye contact and adopt a relaxed tone when conversing with others. so that you will not have a misunderstanding. Next, we have build up your confidence by asking for feedback and observing others. Focus on improving your skills by practicing in front of those who you may feel more comfortable with. You can also ask those whose advice you value to give you feedback and critique your communication style after a discussion. The last one, we have communicate face-to-face on the important issues. Having that face-to-face dialogue, and I hope we will have a face-to-face class soon, means you can convey your point more clearly with your body language as well as your tone of voice. It can also help to clear up any misunderstanding or distortion of the message that could occur through other mediums. These are the 5 ways to avoid communication breakdown. Remember, becoming an effective communicator takes time and practice. Over time, using these strategies can lead to better communication in your personal relationship and more productive workplace environments as well. Now, I know you understand the oral communication. We will further discuss it for our next lesson. But now, let us now start our activity. Please prepare your answer sheet and pencil or ball pen. For the activity number 1, read each item carefully, then choose the letter that corresponds to your answer. Just write directly the letter in your answer sheet. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. Number 7. Number 8. Number 9. Number 10. Number 11. Number 12. Number 13. Number 14. And the last number, number 15. If you are not done answering, you can pause the video and continue answering. Activity number 2. Create a comic strip showing how you would communicate to your community the advantages of the following health protocols and guidelines amidst COVID-19 pandemic in your municipality or province. Draw or write it in a short and clean bond paper. Be creative in making because we have rubrics. This is the example of comic strip that you will make. This will be our comic strip rubrics. So you must be creative in making and make sure it is clean. And for our last activity, activity number 3, write 250-word essay of your observation of the various speakers you've watched and listened to. So you must watch the video given after this. I will show you first. I will show you the rubrics first before giving you the video. Here is our rubrics for our essay. Write it in your answer sheet.
Mr. President, Condoleezza Rice is here to see you.
Good, send her in.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Oh, Condoleezza, good to see you. What's happening?
Well, Mr. President, I have the report here about the new leader in China.
That's great, Condi. Let's hear it.
Mr. President, who is the new leader of China?
Well, that's what I want to know.
But that's what I'm telling you, Mr. President.
Well, that's what I'm asking you, Condi. Who is the new leader of China?
Yes.
I mean the fellow's name.
Who?
The guy in China.
Who?
The new leader of China.
Who?
The Chinaman.
Who is leading China, Mr. President?
What are you asking me for?
I'm telling you who is leading China.
Well, I'm asking you, Condi, who is leading China?
That's the man's name.
That's whose name?
Yes.
Will you or will you not tell me the name of the new leader of China?
Yes, sir.
Yasser? Yasser Arafat is in China? I thought he was in the Middle East.
That's correct, sir.
Then who is in China?
Yes, sir.
Yasser is in China?
No, sir.
Then who is?
Yes, sir.
Yasser?
No, sir.
I need to know the name of the new leader of China, so I want you to get me the Secretary General of the United Nations on the phone.
You want coffee?
No.
You don't want coffee?
No. But now that you mention it, I could use a glass of milk. And then get me the UN.
Yes, sir.
Not Yasser. The guy at the United Nations.
Coffee?
Milk. Will you please make that call?
And call who?
Well, who is the guy at the UN?
No. Who is the guy in China?
Will you stay out of China?
Yes, sir.
And stay out of the Middle East? Just get me the guy at the UN.
Coffee?
Alright. With cream and 2 sugars. Now get on the phone.
Hello. Rice here.
Rice? Good idea. And get a couple of egg rolls too, Condi. Maybe we should send some to the guy in China and the Middle East. Can you get Chinese food in the Middle East? I don't know.
If you have any questions or clarifications, you can contact me with this number or in my Facebook account. As a Nicolaitian student, you aim to improve the ability to collaborate with one another, understand one another, and communicate with your loved ones so that we will have a good relationship. Thank you for watching and listening. Till our next lesson.